Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Inside Marketing, another really exciting podcast today. I am joined by Chris Lee, who is the head of marketing at Impact Cubed. Really excited to have you with us, Chris, and really excited to hear what you've got to say about marketing in your industry and generally, and to kind of get inside your mind today, all about marketing and what that represents in 2024. So thanks so much for taking the time today to join us. Really appreciate it.
No worries. No, it's great to be on, and thanks for having me. And yeah, it's great to have someone that's interested to listen to what I've got to say.
Yeah,
So
I'm
yeah,
sure there'll be many. I'm sure I will not be alone in that. I'm sure that there'll be lots of people tuning in who'll be able to find this really insightful, whether they work in similar world to yours or different. I think that's what's fantastic about the guests that we have on Inside Marketing. I think it doesn't necessarily have to be that you work in a similar field. There's lots of parallels from senior marketers kind of across really varied industries and sectors. And I think it's actually quite interesting for people to see inside different industries that they don't normally work in. So yeah, really appreciate you
exactly.
being on today. And I think really, obviously, you've had a lot of experience in the world of marketing, which has kind of led you to the role that you're at now. It'd be great if you could kind of wind back the clocks and take us on that journey. How you started, how you get into marketing, what drew you to it initially, whether you did anything else, and just kind of give us a feel for how you've come to be where you are now in the role. That'd be great.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't really want to fall into the old cliche of I fell into marketing.
Yeah.
But as with most of the people, I sort of did. I left uni. I did psychology at uni, so I was very much interested in how people behave, what makes them tick,
Mm,
what they're interested in, and I actually started work at PwC, so PricewaterhouseCoopers, big sort of
yeah.
consultancy firm, and I was actually in the kind of HR consulting team at first, so really figuring out exactly that, what makes people tick, how can we improve their like day-to-day
Mm,
lives at work and make workplaces more efficient. And actually, as part of that, I kind of started to do more kind of marketing led activity in terms of promoting the workplaces at first. So, what makes
yeah.
them a great place to work? How can they attract candidates? What's the employer brand? So, actually, quite a lot of my first part of my experience was in the employer brand space, which
Okay,
people
interesting.
are still quite confused around, that they don't really get the reason why a brand should have the consumer facing brand as well as an
Mm-hmm.
employer brand.
Mm-hmm.
They are two distinct things, whether you're getting someone
Mm,
to buy a product, it could be, depending on the size of the product, it could be a 30-second to 5 minute decision
mm,
versus, when you're applying for a job, it's a life change. It's
yes.
a much bigger choice. So it's really important to have those two things. So, and I think that obviously really started my interest in the whole, clear cut sort of marketing per se.
Mm.
So I've worked both agency side and in house. Spent 10 years working in an agency, and anyone else that's worked in an agency will tell you that is enough. That is that is long enough time to work in an agency. Agencies are fantastic for experience and getting to learn such a breadth of different
Mm,
things. But it's super tough, super challenging. The
yeah.
agencies I worked for, I had 10 different clients at any one time. So
Mm,
moving in house now at the moment, obviously I'm at Impact Cubed right now,
hmm.
and I know I can go on to explain what we do a bit later. But
Sure.
working in house is obviously has its pros and cons, just like anything.
Mm,
But at
mm-hmm.
least what I really like about working in house is you get to focus on one brand in particular.
Mm,
You can put all your marketing effort behind specific messages without having to like dilute your time across a lot of different clients. So
yeah.
that's what I'm in enjoying right now. And yeah, I think as a marketeer, no matter what background you come from, you always find yourself in a slightly more generalist position.
Mm,
Like I would think,
mm,
you'd be quite a lot of people will have both agency and in-house experience across different sectors.
mm-hmm.
To some degree, marketing is marketing, right? We just want to make sure that people get the proposition, understand what,
Yeah.
you at your current company, what you sell and who's going to buy it. And, it's such transferable skill that you can, if you can do marketing somewhere, you can do it anywhere really. So
Yeah, yeah. How interesting. Really kind of fascinating to see how you started in that psychology space. And do you feel that then that, because I feel like everybody has a central thread as a senior marketer, whether that's data or creativity or psychology or whatever that is. So do you feel that that psychology kind of still leads you in your decision making? And I guess it's always about that resonance with people is what it comes back to for
absolutely,
you. Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, as much as um, I don't necessarily use my degree on a day-to-day basis, but
Mm,
um, at the heart of it, at its core, marketing is about people, right? It's about
yes.
how they spend their time, where they spend their time, what they enjoy, what they dislike, and again, we'll probably come on to this, but in this age of AI and just this like content tsunami at the
Sure.
moment,
Yeah.
it's more important than ever to actually understand. Let's just strip everything right back to the basics. Who is
Mm,
this person? What are their hobbies? What are their interests? Going kind of back to more of persona-led marketing, really. Just
mm,
because the industry that I work in at the moment is, the financial world. So we
yes.
provide ESG and products for the likes of asset management, banks, etc. And even though we might be talking to the same type of customer, let's say, it could be the ESG data person or it could be the person in charge of products. Those people have different interests within that group. So,
Yes.
it's no longer enough to just go out with a generic message that you think will suit one team. It has to be super
Mm,
tailored to that individual. Like, what do they like, what do they dislike, and kind of tailoring that messaging to make sure that they're going to pay attention, because at the end of
yeah.
the day, that's kind of what you're competing for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it always is something that I come back to that people buy for emotional reasons. That is the core of marketing. And so we understand about them, we understand about what drives them, but we also understand about, what's a problem for them? What is keeping them up at night? What really frustrates them? What would give them a lot more peace of mind that we could offer, really pushing with that message. So I think the psychology can't be underestimated. And I think it's very clear when you see a campaign that hasn't truly considered that, because again, we talk on the podcast quite a lot about, one of the common pitfalls of marketing being that it focuses far too much on us and our products and our services, and actually it's got absolutely no emotional resonance at all. So really important to kind of put that psychological resonance first. Yeah, I can imagine that stands you in really good stead and a really interesting like avenue to come at marketing from, and particularly from the employer brand as well, because you're literally live kind of experiencing and experimenting with what people engage with and what people aren't bothered about. That's quite interesting. So yeah, I wonder if
Yeah.
you want to, sorry, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
No, I think you're totally right, and actually, it's something that even like us as marketeers, we sometimes overlook. We sometimes go out as like product first. Hey, here's our like
Yes.
USPs. Here's what our product can do. It's me. Well, no
Mm,
one really cares about that. People care about what can you do for me. Like,
yes.
how are you going to solve my pain point? So actually, when I first joined Impact Huge, we pivoted away from product focus
Yeah.
to solution focus, and that sounds like it's the same thing, but it's not. Instead of having on the website product A, B, and C, it's like use cases and how we
Yes.
we basically translate our products in terms of what we can do for the people.
Yeah.
So it sounds like an articulated lorry is just going past the window. So
No worries.
nice.
He wants to tune in.
Busy London, busy London. So yeah, and I still see a lot of websites and companies again that are just like product, product this, product that. And I think no
Yes.
matter if you're like B2C or B2B, there's always that pain point that you can solve, and there's always that itch that you can scratch that customer is sort of looking for. And I think that's what
Yeah.
we need to focus on more as marketeers.
Yeah, yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? So it's like the bright light we get drawn to because we're obsessed with our products and services. We love them and we think they're the best thing ever. So we want to put them front and center, but it's not, people don't understand what it is. It's not, they don't see it in the same way. So it's a real common pitfall to fall into. And you're right, it's surprising how many websites you go onto and you see exactly that mistake on some pretty big brands, and you think there's no thinking here. So yeah, that is really interesting. I wonder if you want to tell us a little bit more about Impact Cubed and kind of what you guys do as an organization, and maybe what you've been like prioritizing in terms of marketing, what the challenge is, how does the day-to-day look for you at the moment?
Yeah, so at Impact Cubed, we basically advise throughout the investment value chain on
Mm,
sustainability. So what that means in like layman's terms is whether you're looking for, ESG, environmental social governance
yeah.
insight on your current investment products. So it could be
Hmm.
your investment portfolio. We primarily only really deal with big institutional investors like asset managers, private
Yeah.
banks, etc. Not so much people like me and you. Um, but whether that's they're looking to make their portfolio greener or have more impact, we can help with that. We do what we call investment solutions, so we can create a new portfolio, we can create indexes and ETFs. So these are just products that you can invest in. And what's quite cool about us is the ESG industry in itself has got its own pitfalls in terms of endless acronyms, endless buzzwords like regulation
Yeah.
warriors. So actually, we take the solution first approach at Impact Cube, obviously quite strongly as well. So it's like, hey, we know that you've got all this regulation to try and keep on top of. We know your pain points. Here's how we can help. So it's not so much like product first. It's how can we help you in your day to day pain that you
Yeah.
may be experiencing. We're at B2B, so and actually quite a lot of our sales cycles are super long. So
Right.
this, people listening may or may not have long sales cycles, but our sales cycles
Yeah.
can last anywhere between 6 months to a year and a half. These are massive, slow-moving beasts that we're trying to corral and
Mm,
and,
mm.
and push into using one of our solutions. So what that just means is, it's not enough for us to reach out to cold prospects and we may get someone's email, oh hey, that's a lead, great, that's like the marketing job done. It was actually
Yeah.
it's actually not really for us. We need to make sure that we're constantly keeping that pool of people warm, whether that's like
Mm,
simple things like a newsletter, or we're also doing things like expertise groups and like peer
yeah.
groups and like roundtable events. So these people feel like they're like VIPs, and we're constantly keeping them up to date with the latest regulation or insights.
Mm,
And we use tools like online sales rooms. So for all intents and purposes, it's basically just a landing page for that specific client that we can
okay.
add content to. The sales team can add decks and presentations to, etc. And
Nice.
kind of that's the client's go-to place. Like there's no more
Yeah.
searching through endless email threads, or oh, I spoke to this person 6 months ago. Let me try and like dig that email out. Everything's
Yeah.
on this
Track back.
in this one place.
Mm,
Which again, it just goes back to the solution-driven point. I think making your prospect's life as easy as possible, and
mm.
if someone's going to go back to you 12 months down the line when they might have budget now, or they may have got past compliance, or whatever that those hurdles might have been, we need to make sure
Mm.
that we're still top of mind for them.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's interesting what you say there, and I think with a long sales cycle, like you pick up on that sales and marketing alignment is so crucial, because it's not a transfer of one to the other like it might be in a shorter sales cycle where it's marketing does the job and then door shuts on marketing and then it's over to sales. It's like you guys seem like you've got to kind of collaborate quite well on that, and for sales to succeed, marketing needs to succeed, and the vice versa as well. So yeah,
Exactly.
so you have quite, I guess you have quite a close kind of communication with sales team. Sounds like you're kind of feeding back and
Absolutely, yeah. We have a weekly, we call it a commercial call, which just the sales and the marketing teams get
yeah.
together. We share pain points that we're experiencing internally, and how we can kind of get past those. But also, it's really important that marketing has that constant feedback loop from sales, like what's working, what isn't working. Every
Mm,
sales rep should be asking a prospect how they heard about us, where they came from, because as much as we try and get all our kind of tracking and UTMs again coming at our ears, and we try and get all of that nailed. At the end of the day, it's just we're people. You can ask us questions.
Yeah.
So, ask the prospects where they came from, how they found out about us, how we compare to
Mm,
competitors. So we do constantly have that kind of like feedback loop. And actually, a trend that I'm seeing more of at the moment is account-based marketing.
yeah.
So, you know, nothing new particularly. People have been doing this since like the 80s, but I think we're in this age of personalization and everyone's using like AI to create pretty crap content, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's all about, well, let's put our heads together, let's really tailor, or let's have a white glove marketing approach to contact and get in touch with specific stakeholders at a specific company. So, our sales team might say, hey, we really want to land this big, like, asset manager. It's going to bring in like great revenues. So I'm not going to go out and do a LinkedIn campaign to target, 5,000 people. That's not going to work. So we can do, more innovative things. Like we can do programmatic banners that geo-fence the office. We can
Yeah.
do a similar thing for events that they'll be attending. You can create
Nice.
custom like landing pages and emails and experiences that are tailored to that specific company. Again, going back to that solutions-led approach, like how can we show them that we understand their business, their pain points, and how can we, easily demonstrate how we can solve those problems within 30 seconds. Like no one's going to spend more than like 2 minutes reading a 30-page PDF. It has to be super quick. So that's kind of what we've been exploring more recently. And for that to work, you need that really close collaboration with sales,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, like they might actually be the ones that first get in touch with that specific person.
Sure.
And I think people always think, oh, marketing's just all about top of funnel and getting people like through the door or to the website. And that, yeah, that's important, but it's only one tiny part of the puzzle. Like we help the whole
Absolutely.
kind of funnel,
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. And then we're responsible for at the bottom of the funnel, kind of re-engaging, referrals, kind of reactivating at the bottom there. So it's a never-ending loop. And it sounds really interesting with regards to account-based marketing. And I wonder if, because I imagine in your industry, I guess marketing and purchasing is always about trust, but hugely for you guys because of the value of the kind of customers that you're dealing with and the decisions that they're making, what you're helping them with. So I imagine that really helps as well because you would imagine the more personalized, the more trust and things like that. I guess that's kind of what you're experiencing. People kind of more prepared to buy in because of the personalization of the experience they're receiving with you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think again this is a trend that I'm seeing is like marketing going back to its roots. And what I mean by that is, it was everything moved online. I mean, like COVID, as much as
Yes.
anything, meant everything was done virtually. Like there was like no more events, no more networking, like nothing. Like everything was just done online and on email. I mean, I don't know about you, but I get at least 6 or 7 sales emails a day, and
Yeah.
I know I'm probably like bottom of the pile in terms of who people like want to reach out to. So I imagine if you're like for us like an asset manager or even like
Mm.
and what we call an asset owner, so like a big pension fund, they're sat on billions of pounds. They get
Yeah.
absolutely inundated with emails, with banners, with blog posts and ebooks and all this stuff. So I do think we need to take a step back again and just think about, well,
Mm.
what were we doing 10 years ago that actually worked? So like events, in-person events,
Yeah.
taking like prospects out like for lunch, like super basic things that still really
Yeah.
work. And
Yeah.
I mean, we've even thought about going back to like direct mail for like certain
Yeah.
campaigns, because who actually gets mail anymore? Hardly anyone.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to open it at least.
Yeah.
So we have to do things a little bit more creatively in our industry,
Mm.
because there's obviously really strict laws around like bribery. And if like one of the things that we would love to do is invite all the prospects out to a nice fancy event or like the races or
Yes.
something, but you can't really do that in our industry, because it could be seen as kind of like corruption, or we're trying to pay them to work with us.
Yes.
So that makes our job a bit harder actually. So we just have to think about, well, okay, instead of just taking everyone out for lunch, we're going to actually teach them about ESG integration and how to actually manage that in your portfolio. So it's going to be a lunch and learn, or it's going to be, we're going to have two really interesting speakers come along.
Mm.
We'll give you actionable insight. And that's something that I'm really passionate about as well. And even like things like this podcast, that I'm so conscious to try and give actionable things that
Yes.
people can take away, because there's nothing worse than, again, this can go for your marketing collateral or content or whatever. If there's nothing tangible or actionable that you can
Yeah.
take away from it, it's a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
So, how many conferences have you been to where it's like, oh, hey, like cookies are going to go away soon, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, you've been saying this for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, have you got anything tangible for me to do? It's like,
Yeah.
oh yes, then you need to make sure you're collecting first party information. Okay, great. Collecting emails, great. You've got a big CRM set up, great. Those are like
Mm.
actionable things that you can do to help those issues.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting industry, and it's hard, right? I mean, no one says that marketing's easy. I also think what's quite funny is sometimes businesses view the marketing department as this catch-all department to do anything that doesn't fit in with sales. So
Yeah.
we're talking everything from like social committees through to organising events through to, I don't know, other stuff. So,
We're the fun team.
yeah, exactly. The fun team. So, which is great on one hand. I think we're quite lucky that if you speak to any marketer, we're just so experienced in a lot of different stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and actually, probably where I've learnt the most is not from my day-to-day work. It's probably from my hobbies, to be honest. So
Okay.
I make music in my spare time.
Cool.
You know, just from that, I've had to learn how to, create proper PPC campaigns on like Facebook and Instagram, and how people can actually
Yeah.
listen to my music and reach my music. Hashtag Night Ride. That's that's the name of,
We'll put
of
it in
my
the
band.
bio.
Nightride.com. So yeah, and even down to using creative tools like Canva or Photoshop, or
Mm.
these are in your day-to-day role, you'll probably do bits of that. But if you've got a bigger marketing team, you're not going to touch like PPC adverts. You're going to get someone else to do that.
Yeah.
Or if you're a smaller team, you might have an agency do that, because you've got different things coming in, left, right, and centre, requests from everyone, new content.
Sure.
Sales need a new one pager, obviously, for a millionth time. So it's like, I don't know what people's, everyone's got different hobbies and stuff, but don't underestimate how much you can learn from them. Um, there's definitely transferable skills everywhere, and
Yeah.
actually, the vast majority of my marketing knowledge has probably come from my own personal
Yeah.
interests. So yeah,
Yeah,
one to
that's
keep
so
in mind.
interesting. Yeah, that is. And I guess, we're all users of the platforms that we use as tools as marketers, the social channels and Google and everything else. We all absorb that content as consumers, as customers of other brands. So we've got to almost like reverse engineer that experience that we're getting all the time, and then implement that into what we're trying to do. And I think you can really often forget that. So it's interesting to kind of get the reminder from you that actually the learning for marketers is all around all the time, whether you are publishing your music or you have a small business or whatever else, hobbies, and you can learn through that, but also just from being alert and being present. From I'm fascinated by ads on the TV, billboards that pass in the street, ads that pop up on social media, like always. That's learning. And I think to have that consciousness to stop and analyze when you do see something like that, rather than just like passively consuming all the time,
Yeah,
can make you much better actually, because you're building an awareness of what you like, what you don't like, what you think is quite good, what actually you think is a bit rubbish. And I think that really helps. So yeah, we'll pop your music in the bio. What sort of music do you make? Like,
it's electro pop, so like
oh,
churches or like
cool,
like years and years, that sort of vibe.
cool,
So yeah,
that's cool.
okay, that's my kind of creative outlet.
Yeah,
Because
nice.
probably as along with a lot of other B2B marketeers, our creative input is probably somewhat limited by an extensive
Yeah.
brand book or
Yeah.
I mean at Impact Cube, that's the reason why I joined, is because the brand was awful, to be honest,
Right.
at the
Yeah. Yeah.
beginning. So they didn't really have a brand, the website was bad, etc., etc. So I,
Yeah.
lucky in that fact to have, really tangible input into that.
Mm,
But quite a lot of the time, especially if you're working for a big brand, it's like, oh hey, here's our 80-page brand book, get on with it. And I just
mm.
remember, having like PTSD from agency days, like getting like rulers out to make sure that the logo was like had the correct
Yeah.
like exclusion space on it and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's my kind of creative outlet, and I would encourage like
Yeah.
anyone, like obviously most marketeers must be at least have a creative bone in them. So, explore, maybe you know, do a kind of like role play where go to set up your own online shop or something, and get as far
Yeah.
as you can without actually launching it. But it's, you just learn from scratch
Yeah.
how to do certain things. So I think
Mm,
that's really important. And the
yeah.
other thing I would say is have a purge of LinkedIn. I mean, the number of gurus on there is
Yeah.
just crazy. So
Yeah.
anyone that starts their post with capital letters is gone, is they're unfollowed. Anyone that doesn't
Yeah.
have like tangible insights, they're gone. Anyone that just posts like unuseful content. So, don't feel like you have to accept all connections. Like I do think LinkedIn should still be a place that you find useful and interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and there's some great accounts that I follow like on there that always highlight the great adverts that they've seen that week, or
Yeah.
their opinion on like for example like the latest Monzo ad. It was like Money versus Monzo, and
Mm.
then Monzo partnered with Greggs to give out sausage rolls through a
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
ATM machine. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Can I use it
Yeah.
in my B2B? No, but the whole boring versus interesting kind of creative vehicle, that is something that I
Yes.
can keep in my back pocket for you know some campaign idea. So
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I think we've got to be very careful with what we allow into our world, because we do just sit passively on LinkedIn and wherever else, and we do scroll, and that information is going into our brain. We can't really do anything about it. So you've got to filter that to make sure it's high quality. And I totally agree with you. It's got to be valuable in terms of something tangible, or just something that's a seed of inspiration. Even if you're not going to be able to adopt a similar idea because it just doesn't work in your industry. I think just being surrounded by creativity and that buzz and that energy. One I like to follow is, I think it's called 1 Minute Briefs.
yeah,
And yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. And
yeah,
I always just find it really, I mean, it's the classic kind of problem to solution. They've got a problem. It's often a little bit hilarious. They come up with the most creative ideas. None of that can I implement in my own work, but it's cool to be surrounded by those brains and those ideas. So yeah, I think being careful with that. And I just circling back, I love what you were saying about kind of, it is interesting. We are kind of all sheep, aren't we? A new trend or a new software platform becomes available, and we all run to it. A cold email, for example. And I think you're so right. If we were to open up one of the target prospects inboxes, I'm sure it's just an absolute sort of deluge of emails, because it's saturated now. So then we've got to find that. I think I saw some diagram once, and it called it like the clear space or the white space, where actually nobody is,
yeah,
because everybody's hurried over to this corner because that's what everyone's saying is the go-to thing in marketing. But it's like by the time you've run over there, you're too late, because the people who
yeah,
are on the crest of the wave, they captured all the potential from that new trend, and you're too late. So instead of running over there and chasing around to all these trends that emerge, think a few steps ahead, which it sounds like you really try and foster in your team.
yeah.
And I think that's what we've got to do. It's tough,
But
but
also, I mean, it's like yeah, you can think ahead, but also like think backwards. So like the
yeah.
one of the things that we were thinking of doing at Impact Cube was, I'm not sure if you heard of that street clean promotion stuff, where they basically put like a stencil on the floor and like
Oh, I've seen it.
blast away
Yeah.
the dirt, and we were just gonna do that outside the offices of our like target asset managers, and it's like
Nice.
that's something that I did 10 years ago, with like EE to promote a new like type of phone, or you know whatever, but it's just something that isn't online. People see it in real life. It's,
Yeah,
yes, it's a bit gimmicky, but to be honest, if it's going to get people to visit your site and learn more, then, great.
yeah, yeah.
I think, I think one thing we've got to watch out for is AI, and this is the topic that I
Mm,
wanted to discuss because I personally,
yeah.
I absolutely love AI. I think it's going to not necessarily be as big of a transformation just yet. You know, when we say AI, it's not really intelligent. All these models are doing is predicting what word will come next. So they're not
Yes.
actually intelligent. That's what people mustn't forget. They are kind of glorified autocompletes, which they
Mm.
do a very good job at it, but they're not sentient. But I mean, even though I'm sure that's not that long off. Um,
Scary.
yes, I use Chat GPT every day for
Mm.
brainstorming like ideas or getting like a skeleton down. But there's so much like content now that is just obviously pumped straight out of GPT. We're going to dive into this, we're going to delve into this, deep dive
Yeah.
into this. Like
Explore the synergy.
as soon as I see any of those words that's just blocked, like that's just
Yeah.
obviously come straight out of that GPT. So I think as marketeers, first of all, if you're scared of it or if you're not using it, then you need to upscale ASAP. I mean, you just have to be using this stuff to even know what's coming down the road. I mean,
Yeah.
and that kind of goes beyond logging into GPT. It's really understanding how you can prompt it properly. So
Yeah.
how do you get the most out of it? I mean, I've met a few marketing colleagues who just say, "Oh no, it's crap. It doesn't do what I want it to do." And I was like, "Well, because you're not asking it in the right way."
Yeah.
And then the other thing you can do is create a custom GPT for your organization. So you can now train it on all your sales and marketing materials, existing
Mm.
materials,
Mm.
USPs, everything. And then you can roll that chatbot out either internally so people can just ask a question and get answers quickly without having to ask different people.
Yes.
Or I myself may use it to, okay, well, just draft me the start of a LinkedIn post focusing on, this specific regulation and how we can help. It's going to instantly give me, relevant insights from previous stuff that I've worked on, but
Yes.
in a way that I don't have to completely start from scratch. And I think that's how you have
Mm.
to think about AI. It's a stepping stone to the final product. Like it isn't the final
Mm.
product itself, but it can
Mm.
definitely help you get there.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so and
Yeah.
let's not. I mean, AI it's not really that new. It's been around for years and years, but it's just these like language models of kind of sort of taken over.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, they're very impressive with what they can do. We just need to make sure that we're not just spitting out endless like ebooks and content that no one's going to read because everyone's
Sure.
already overloaded with it.
Yeah, yeah, it's not. I think you're so right. It's smart. The potential of it is smart, but only if it's used in a smart way. I think at the beginning we all just sort of asked it to do pretty sort of basic stuff, and then surprised when we get sort of basic and impressive results back. But actually, if we adopt some ways of using it that's actually way more intelligent. Someone previously on another episode described it as it should be used as almost like a parallel to the dishwasher. The dishwasher doesn't do anything absolutely fantastic, but the dishwasher does the menial tasks so that you are freed up or you have more time to work on the high level things that require more thinking. And I think that's what it is, and having it more embedded. And I like that idea of kind of having it internally within an organization and that shortcutting and making things more efficient. Like that's how we've got to start adopting it instead of just this really like tokenistic kind of, oh, ChatGPT can help me write this blog or this LinkedIn post or whatever. Like that's not really its perfect design. So, um, yeah, I think so. And do you think then, do you see it through it as a quite positive thing then for marketing going forwards? Because obviously there's definitely mixed views with regards to, oh no, like it could compete with us as marketers, or other people believe it to be, the best thing that's ever happened. Do you see the outlook as quite positive for anyone working in marketing?
I mean, I think it's a good question. I've got friends, really close friends, that their bread and butter is copywriting, and I do
Yeah.
think that's a very dangerous area to be in at the moment because these, even though they are kind of glorified autocompletes, they're just getting better and better. And now that you can train it on your own, company's, USPs and proposition and mission,
Mm.
I do see that eating into the copy market. It's never going to be as good as hiring a proper copywriter that gets,
Mm.
that human aspect of it. That's never going to go away. But I do think that is a risk in terms of the workforce.
Sure.
I mean, like I guess that's just like the content side of AI. I mean, I guess the more arguably useful side of it is when it can augment actual business processes. So I met with a kind of a social media slash news listening company recently. So, and like social listening itself again isn't new, collating what people think about a brand online and coming up
Mm.
with, analysis. But where AI is useful is it can be really way more accurate in terms of correctly assessing the sentiment and the context of
Mm.
those mentions and the wider surrounding kind of information.
Mm.
So which just gives us as marketeers way more insight into, okay, well, what is the real sentiment out there? What are people talking about? What are the
Yeah.
emerging trends? What are the diminishing trends? Which is something that we just couldn't really do that well before. So
No.
AI is going to definitely help. I mean, I personally cannot wait for an AI to properly do PPC because I can't stand it. It's like the
Yeah.
most boring,
Yeah.
tedious
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
But we just have to just, somehow get through it. And somehow that, the Facebook and the LinkedIn ads, self-serve platforms are just really still clunky, just nasty
Yeah.
to use and just horrible. So if I can outsource that to AI, great.
Yeah.
I'm sure though at the same time that's going to eat into someone else's job role as well, like pure play PPC people. So,
Mm.
marketing as a function, yes, is probably in the firing line, more than most in terms of AI. So I think as marketeers, we just need to make sure that we're really clued up, and that there was, I saw someone's LinkedIn strapline that was like master AI before it masters you. I mean, it's a little bit
Yeah.
dystopian, but I mean, you do have to understand it and know how to leverage
Yeah.
it. And if you are maybe in one of those more day-to-day roles where you're either focusing just on copy or you're focusing just on PPC, you're going to have to
Mm.
take a step back and become more of a generalist. Like, as I was saying before, marketing's so transferable. The skills that you can do across like loads of different industries, loads of different things. So I kind of think, we might have to think more broadly and how can we
Yeah.
just make sure that we all become slightly more generalist in terms of what,
Mm.
what we can offer.
Mm.
I mean, I definitely feel more so for the graduates right now because, AI and all this stuff wasn't around 13, 14 years ago when I
Mm.
graduated, So I do think entry level positions are going to be way harder to find, I think.
Mm.
But again, to combat that, at the same time, the tech and the infrastructure and AI is there to help you upskill yourself. Like I was saying before, you can
Sure.
figure out how to set up your own online shop or your online brand, or try and be an influencer to a degree. But as long as you're adding actual value and actionable,
Mm. Mm.
insight, I think all the tools are there. You just need to make sure that you're not going to be left behind
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
just following the day to day. I think you're going to have to need
Mm.
to upskill across a few different
Yeah.
aspects of marketing.
Yeah, I think so. And so I guess the advice to people starting out their career is that keeping to that diversification in marketing and kind of staying generalist. And at least at the beginning, you might niche down later on when you're more experienced and have more expertise, but at the beginning, almost spreading across as many different sectors and fields of marketing as you possibly can. And also just trying to read and consume and watch the videos and like experience the platforms, and like you say, try it out for yourself. Those are the sorts of things that are going to give you the edge. And it's hard, isn't it? Because I can imagine it, I almost visualize it as all of those people starting out in their careers in marketing in some sort of invisible race, and you don't really know what position you're at in the race. But the things that you've mentioned there, I think, give you the best chance of being ahead or being at the front as opposed to being at the back. So it's competitive, no doubt, and I also sympathise with them. But hey, who knows what potential those tools are going to bring forward for the people once they get into roles like yours and in 10, 15, 20 years time. So it's exciting, but it's also intimidating whenever there's new something on the scene. So yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
And, I do think we're years off having, I mean, I know Tesla said recently that they're going to start, to be using robots next year, but, in terms of like AI taking over the world, I mean, I do think we're still a little way off. I mean,
yeah,
um, when the internet first came around, it was like, oh, this is going to be the end of like most businesses, and actually it ended up helping
yeah.
the vast majority of them. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's interesting. It's just another disruptor that we
yeah,
as marketers need to try and handle. Just like the whole,
mm,
sunsetting of third-party cookies. That's another
mm,
thing that we need to make sure that we're on top of, and our CRM's
yeah,
up to scratch, and we've got all our data tagged properly, and we've got first-party tags put on our own site, things like that. So we'll just have to learn to adapt, and we will. I think that's what makes us such, talented people, if I do say so
yeah,
myself.
absolutely.
It's like we can do a hell of a lot of stuff. We just need to make sure
Yeah.
that we keep on, like, adapting to what's new.
Yeah, absolutely. Be aware, understand what's out there, get ahead of it before it gets ahead of you, as you say. And yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it, for sure. And every challenge starts off as a challenge and then becomes, sometimes completely falls by the wayside and is a flop, but sometimes it then becomes the best thing that we wouldn't know how to do our jobs without. So, you never know
Exactly.
which of the tools around are going to become those crucial ones.
And
So yeah.
an example of how AI can help solve other challenges. So again, take the third-party cookie death death knell, which apparently is now coming next
Mm,
year. Even though, so like Google keeps pushing it back by a year, so it may happen next year, it may not. Um, we can, instead of using third-party data and
mm,
cookies to try and guess, what advertising banner to show someone, or what video to play. AI
yeah,
can be used, for example, for like more contextual ads. So you don't need any prior information on who's looking at an article, but AI can scan the article, pull out sentiment, keywords,
yeah,
and then pull in from an ad exchange or library, a relevant ad that doesn't
yeah,
need super personal information from me. It just knows what I'm reading about, and but again, I think it's that added value bit. It's that sentiment. It's that wider context piece. Like maybe I don't know, the speed that I'm reading it, or where my mouse is
mm,
moving, or kind of words on a page. All of that will be fed into this like AI model that will just
yeah,
predict what I'm interested in.
yeah,
Without without needing super personal detail. I think that's one
yeah,
way to use it.
yeah, agreed. It's almost kind of jumping over that obsession for the super personalized detail to be the way that we get to people. It's even cleverer than that. It's observing things about you that you yourself don't even really know about yourself, like you mentioned, speed of reading, etc., etc., and serving us ads that are going to match well, but not for a reason that we'd be able to identify. And I think that's the really interesting part of it. Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm an optimist for sure, and I think it provides us with fantastic potential, and it's also just yeah, exciting to see how we can implement it and what it can do. But there's a lot of different options out there, and it's important to be aware of them, be aware of what's coming up, and get to know them yourself, because otherwise everybody else will, and you'll be left behind. So yeah, not to be really negative about it and scare everyone on top of the massive workloads everybody already has.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's exciting. Well, Chris, we have, that's really interesting there to delve into AI and your industry and kind of the things that you've been tackling. Kind of come to the end of the time there. But really, I think there'll be some great insights for people to take away. And like you mentioned, some really tangible things there, and some advice, especially for people starting out in their careers, as well. And I think that's reassuring to hear from somebody who has kind of trodden that path that maybe so many people are at the beginning of at the moment and wanting to set out on, what's the current advice today? What do you think people should be focusing their attention on? So I think that's really nice. So yes, I will have to end the episode, but thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. It's been great to have you. And we'll keep in touch and look forward to seeing the podcast live in a few days.
Great to chat. Thanks for having
Cool.
me.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Chris. See you.
Bye.